Hello and welcome to GuyLogicGaming. My name is Temco and this is Urban Empire, brought to you by Reborn Games and published by Calypso Media Digital. It is a city ruling game, which what they feel is a combination of city building and political gameplay, where you make decisions, fight with political opponents regarding votes to enact policies, taxes, and city building elements, and then combine that with city building elements such as utilities or technological advancement over a period of 200 years. But do they do a good job of it? Well, we're gonna figure that out right about now, but before we dive into the gameplay proper, let's take a look at the options menu and talk a little bit about a PC build. As always, if you are not inclined to join us for this part, there is a description on screen and a link in the description below, skipping you straight to the gameplay section. For the rest of us, the settings menu starts us off with General, which has autosave, pretty straightforward, as well as camera sensitivity. Camera really isn't that important in this game at all, mostly because the game doesn't constrain mouse to window properly. So if you have a multi-monitor setup, that isn't gonna work that well for edge scrolling, which also isn't actually in the game as far as I can tell, or maybe I've missed an option I can't find. So be using your WASD buttons or your right mouse and panning button to move the camera around. Another issue with camera sensitivity is that the panning speed of cameras, as well as the toggle speed for zooming, as well as the tilt keys for shifting the camera angle, are all really sensitive regardless of what camera sensitivity you put them on. A little bit of a weird thing there. Sound-wise, you have Master, Music, and SFX Volume. You do not have a volume for the various voiceovers in the game to have them separate from background sounds, such as audio of the game, or such as button pop-ups or alerts coming up, which is a little bit of a shame because they are generally way louder than the various alerts, and if you put the alerts higher, then in that case, the voiceover audio is going to be monstrously loud, which is not that great. Other than that, a pretty decent options menu. If we head over in the options menu, this is okay for the most part, though not exactly amazing. Resolution options are available for most resolutions that are known to be. You have VSync on or off. You can do cloud shadows, which creates shadows based on cloud coverage, which is a pretty nice feature. You have a couple of presets for graphics quality, and then you have some AA, which doesn't explain what it is, vignettes, bloom, motion blur, noise grain, which motion blur really is a bit weird in this game because it is a city management game. There's not a lot of fast movement to introduce motion blur, so it mostly comes up and appears when you are panning and scrolling, and that just doesn't look that great. You can add noise and grain, which I see no reason to do, and then some depth of field and global fog, as well as camera fog. Both of these features, in my opinion, only obstruct view, doesn't prove anything, but they do hide how very empty and dead the city looks when you're a little bit zoomed out if you have these enabled. So your own preference may differ on that, because that's one of the things I don't like about this game's visuals. In regards to its graphical settings, there's no way to increase or decrease the amount of movement on screen like SimCity used to have, or other games in the genre have, where you can change the setting that says, okay, now I want more NPCs on screen, I want more movement and visuals on screen. Simulating that extra generation is going to be much more taxing on my system. The game doesn't have anything of that sort, and it is as such very, very low on the visual stimulation the game provides in terms of people moving on the streets, or cargo, or trains, or boats, or anything of the sort, which is definitely a tremendous shame. Key mapping is rebindable, but the game doesn't really have that many hotkeys. It mostly has hotkeys to open up a couple of menus and one for pausing time. It doesn't have any hotkeys for direct actions, it doesn't have any hotkeys to go directly to specific subscreens. It doesn't have anything of the sort. Everything is controlled by the mouse, which is, in my opinion, okay because it's not a fast-paced game, you don't need hotkeys. But even if they do provide hotkeys, they're not that great, so that is a bit of a shame. Moving on to the DLC button, there really isn't any DLC, and going by the current game score, I really doubt they're going to be investing a lot of time into getting some DLC out. So overall, the options menu leaves a little bit to be desired in the audio department, as well as the graphical details of the game in terms of settings and explanation of what those settings do. Gameplay stability wise, the game runs absolutely fine. There's no dips, drops, or anything of the sort, and even if there were, it is a very slow paced methodical city building / city ruling game, as they call it, so that too isn't the greatest issue on the planet. Now there's two gameplay modes when you play the game, and the game is obviously only single player, and you can do either a new campaign or a new scenario. If you pick scenario, you can select one of various scenarios that enact a variety of abilities. Sadly, there's only 3 scenarios, and that is a bit of a shame. because basically you only have the ability to do a alien-like scenario, a scenario where you, after the First World War, are tasked to city population reduction, which means you have to kill people or get them to leave, or etc, etc. And you have the Great War scenario, which is just before the First World War, where you are tasked with increasing demand. And these scenarios are pretty interesting because they give you a clear goal to work towards, but they're not that fun because the game really isn't designed around them. What the game is designed around is a new campaign. And every time you start a new campaign, you can select one of 4 families based on the well-known tropes of any game available, which is the hoggy but evil aristocrats, the science lovers, the hard-working people, and so on and so forth. And these are pretty much cut and dry as they will. They give you some modifiers for every cycle the game takes, which is every month. Then you get some political points, or you get some goodwill from people, or you get some extra benefits to the people's happiness or health or whatever else might be available based on the family you select. There's no way to create your own family. There's also no way to customize your various characters down the line because your children will take over from you as you play the game forward. None of that is available. The game just decides that beforehand and really restricts what you can and can't do, which is a damn shame, especially for a game that touts being a city ruler game. The fact that you can't create your own ruler down the line is a massive negative to the title. So having selected a family, you can then select what you are going to be. And if you continue here, it allows you to select a map. There's only 3 maps available, and you can either enable or disable the tutorial. The amount of maps available in this game is the second major critique I have of the title. And overall, it's also my biggest critique of the title in terms of its diversity and availability. The title doesn't have anything extra to offer outside of these couple of maps and these 4 families. And basically the game's after you start playing is identical in every which way. You only have a couple of different modifiers. If you want to be the hard-working folk just pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and then be the hoggy aristocrat in game, you can. And there doesn't appear to be any negative associated with that, regardless of how you play it outside of your base modifiers. Which again is a tremendous shame if you're pre-selecting something, can't modify that something, and then can do whatever you want regardless. Not something I like. But enough about all that, let's go ahead and dive into a city I have already built and talk about the gameplay proper. So gameplay wise, the city I'm playing right now is a U-shaped map that starts off in the bottom left where the harbor area is, and with the railroad area being available in the top right, where I have built my city. Now you might be wondering, why then does the map start you off in the bottom left if your city is in the top right? And that is something you'd have to ask developers because it is annoying the hell out of me. Outside of not having a mini-map or any way of layering information, zooming out to get a global overview of your area or zone, anything of the sort that any decent city building game offers, hell, even SimCity offered that, and we know what kind of dreadful title that was, the game offers very little information in general outside of offering these little annoyances in terms of the UI and gameplay immersion. Not having a minimap or not having overlays for things like zoning levels, not having the overlay for things like happiness. Why are my people not happy with the environment? Why are they not happy with the average security? Is there an issue with where I have placed my municipal services, such as my police station? Apparently there is, because it doesn't cover this area. The game never really explains any of these issues properly, not even with the tutorial, which mostly explains to you how you should enact an edict and raise taxes and build a district. But it never goes in depth regarding anything of the sort, such as the ability that certain buildings in industry require to be assigned to a region which has access to things like water grids or electricity, which improves their efficiency. And once you assign them, you get some benefit, but the problem is the game never explains what benefit. The game also never talks about things like road usage in alerts or information to the player. The only way you can see that your roads are being overused is to go to the districts area of the tab menu and then see that certain areas have a overused road system. But it neither explains how you can change that without improving the road quality or changing different district regions, nor does it ever explain to you why certain areas have such a high usage of roads as opposed to other areas. Now with the train station here, you'd expect Temconia 1 to have the highest road usage, but if you check Temconia 1, we'll see it's only at 68%. Whereas you'd expect Aldborough to be very low on the usage because 1, it's a low urban area with not a lot of industry, and 2, because it doesn't really need many road access to the trainway station. you'd honestly expect Aylstro or Blackfield to be more heavily used because Orlington requires them to get to the train station in terms of all its industry or trading they might do off-city. But the truth can be further off reality, with Aldro being one with 144% and Blackfield being one with 126%. On Blackfield, you could somehow say, okay, I understand and I accept this, but Blackfield has a road density zoning of 3, whereas Aylstro has 4, which also has 92%. It doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion, because the game's traffic never really gets metered or explained in good diagrams, something Cities Skylines does a tremendously good job of. And this is only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the way badly conveying information to the player, not in terms of having a bad UI. The UI is actually pretty clean and gives you access to all the information the game deems you find necessary on a very easy basis, with buttons providing detailed rundowns of all the various things in a high overview. But taking it a step further and figuring out details such as my expenses, why I am 80,000 a month in a deficit, really doesn't explain much of anything. If I check my city income, it shows me all the various things I have an income in, and then it gives me city expenses. But it never puts them one against the other and gives me a clear set of information. Nor can I go any deeper. Is entertainment a major issue for my city? Is it the mayor's funding, or is it the administration? Administration takes 65k a month and healthcare takes 80k a month. Should I then lower the healthcare available? I don't know, because the information just isn't available in regards to where these cents and dollars and simoleons, or whatever the currency here is called, are being spent on. And that is a damn shame, because it doesn't allow you to create a detailed economy or plan ahead about what might happen. I'm currently 80k in deficit because I upgraded my Temconia 1 into a high density zone. The game never explained to me the difference between low, medium and high, outside of obviously them being a different density, but it never explained the benefits or negatives of one over the other in any way or form, which is really strange. I would have liked the game to do a little bit of a better job regarding that. But it's not a city building game, it's a city ruling game, so with all my critique at the city building part being very bland and shallow, I'd like to take a step to the city ruling part and see what is going on there. So if we open up the city council, we'll see this is the 3rd age out of 5, and I have 7 ruling parties. Each of them somewhere on the different sides of the political spectrum, going from the Freedom Party, which is a far-right conservative party, up to the Center Party, with the Christian Democratic Party, and Moderate Party, and so on and so forth. And each of them lives somewhere on the spectrum between left, right, conservative, and liberal, and they will vote based on those principles. They have different party values, and they have a different level of support from the populace during voting season. Now, you might think that you'll be spending a lot of your time in this screen, maybe trying to bribe different political enactments, maybe trying to get taxes raised, lowered, paying off favors for different types of people. Maybe the elite is going to try to lobby you, maybe businesses are going to try to move away if you don't give them a cut. Anything you might expect from a political game set in a city ruling aspect, and you'll see those effects on your city. Again, nothing could be further from the truth, because this is also very shallow and bland and doesn't really provide any details. Voting is nothing more than a slider bar, with parties being either for, against, or in a swing. Based on where the party presents itself in a swing, those are the swing votes. And now for this specific thing, is right to have a childhood, increases the children's rights from level 3 to 4, which also doesn't really mean anything. I have 27 people that are approving of this notion, 4 that are against this notion, and then 30 who are a swing vote. But with 30 being a swing vote, this vote is guaranteed to go through. But I still have to wait until the end. I still have the ability to appeal to parties, which also doesn't allow me to have any fine-tuning control, because before you click, let's say I want to influence the central party, then I can choose plead, demand, or threaten. Now I have basically no goodwill, and I don't see any other information, so let's say I do demand. And I can read the 2 options I have available. Again, these are randomized. I have no idea what they do beforehand, and if I don't like them, well, tough, you have to pick one of them, because you can't go away and read some of the other options available. The game forces you to pick blindly beforehand which way you will go. And that's really it. Now, sometimes the tooltip here is going to explain a little bit of what happens, but most of the time you're just going in blind and clicking randomly until you get something. Another issue is that these parties are very easy to sway. Just playing the goodwill card every cycle of a month on them is going to tank your goodwill with them, obviously. But what it's going to do is going to move them all to the approve, even if they're staunchly against a specific edict. If you check the Freedom Party, which only has 1 council member, so their support isn't that important, you'll notice they have important edicts, such as the no wealth requirement for voting. Why is the far-right conservative party that supports no requirements for voting against something like the right for childhood. The ability to abort and the unemployment funds are very important to them. So why isn't the ability for children to grow up part of that, which would tie into these very easily, and it doesn't appear to be the case. And there's lots more of these things that happen left and right everywhere. Also, I've never encountered a party that is in support of any other party. They're always neutral. And I've also never encountered one that's unsupportive of another party because they're all neutral all the time. Either this is a feature that just isn't well fleshed out, or it's just very rare and doesn't benefit or influence much of anything. Again, a damn shame. Now, there are some things you can take away from these edicts they find very important, but they're generally quite useless because once you go to edicts and you select the edict you want to do, you just get a nice little vision here. Oh, this is how they're going to vote, and you can just say, yeah, let's just go forward with that, leave it running until it gets to the end, and that's it. I head back to my city screen, increase time, and that's going to be it. You'll also notice my city is 25 million in the negative. There really doesn't appear to be any penalty to this. I can still build everything, and though my political council is going to vote against me, I can mostly overrule their decision and not have any negative consequence. Yes, I could theoretically be voted out as mayor from the city and then lose the game instantly, but the reality of the situation is you can plead and guilt and threaten them into voting for you time and again that it doesn't really matter. As far as I can tell, you really have to cock it up quite badly before anything goes amiss. There really doesn't appear to be any long-term consequence, which really does tie in with the fact the game doesn't allow you to have any planning for long-term consequence, because you can't plan ahead and say, I want to build a industry here and I want to build a commercial district here and things like that, because the game doesn't offer that option or ability at all, which again is an issue with the game. So we've already established that the city building part is shallow and basically just distinct drawing and waiting. And the political part, while it offers some different notions on how to do politics, changing different tax rates, changing the funding for different services such as schools or parks or even police officers, or raising your own income by a monthly basis. You can change different edicts, either repeal those you've already passed previously because you might not want them anymore, or create new edicts that for some other reason you might want or not want. Sometimes when the stage changes, so you go from age 1 to age 2 to age 2 to age 3, different edicts are going to be phased out, such as things like loitering is going to be phased out, and different new ones are going to be introduced. Most of these edicts though come from the technology screen, which allows you to create progress from age 1, where you can figure out things like the telegraph or thermodynamics, all the way up to age 3 and age 4, where you will be sitting with things like public health, equality, public opinion, going into age 4, where you'll be sitting with things like organ transplantation and plastics. And you can plan ahead if you have a very high intelligence rating or brain power, which you use to do these various sets of information, and you can unlock new options. So if we take a look at solidarity, for example, you'll notice that adding this research, this progress to my city allows me to add the edict, free hearing aids as well as child allowance, and also allows me the option to upgrade my university into a community college, which is fairly cool. These upgrades do benefit the city immensely because they create things like better brain power, more safety, better schooling, more smart people, better education, a better educated workforce, more wealth, a better middle class, etc., etc. But you never know how well or how much or in any way have an indication of what is going on. And the same really applies to the city council. And while the city council is going to try to enact their own edicts based on what they want to do, they're never going to try to repeal one of your previous edicts, even if they're vehemently against you. You can also try to dig up dirt on them, but generally speaking, this doesn't have any medium to long-term impact. Most of the dirt I've found on them, I've used to get them to like me more, get more goodwill so I can plead with them more easily to get my votes passed for things they might not want to pay for. This includes trying to build a new district when your city's 20 million in the negative. Because they don't want to vote for you to build that district, you can just plead with them endlessly and still get that district built. Is it going to help your city? Of course not. It's going to tank its income even further. But because there is no apparent negative to that, being this much into the negatives, and I've let this game run down into 25 million on purpose without trying to fix it, you can just continue doing what you want. Now you might say, well, how do you win the game then? In most city building games, there is no actual win condition. It's about just getting somewhere. And in the scenarios, there's a clear end of the line where you can have a win condition or an end period where an achievement is set out for you to reach your end. If you check the logbook, you'll note there is 5 ways to win the game. Either through end of time, a remarkable city, which is different classified objectives, which are not that classified because once you clean them, you'll know them for the next time. They don't really change. a political victory, which allows you to do a variety of things to win politically, or you can go with a science victory, which allows you to have your university be prestigious, or a think tank with a city over 200 brain power and an average personal growth of more than 5, which is something I'm well on the way to. But there's a lot of things here you just don't have a lot of control over. For example, the public enlightenment, which allows elite, middle class, and student socials to represent over 75% of your city's population, the only way you can control that is either to heavily taxing the people on the lowest bracket here, which is the low class, but there really isn't any other way to manage who goes to live where, because on the city screen, if you open up a district, so Eostro, or let's pick Aldbro, and I say modify the district, I can make it a higher density district, and I can change the type of residential, business, or industry mix, though I do not have direct control over where they go. I can only change the balance between them, so you only have mixed areas. Not only do you have that, but you can change how they work, where they work, which things like noise pollution and unhappiness are spread throughout your district, which is a bit of a shame. You can also add municipal services such as gas, water, telephone lines, and electric grids. You can change the way things like parking meters go, which give your city a little bit of income, but reduces the bonus of the environment, while costing you a whopping 500,000 for this tiny district, which is just way too expensive. It's never gonna pay itself off. And that is another issue with this game, is that the benefits you get from certain things being introduced just never pay off in a net positive. Adding electric grids to your city to increase the security during nighttime only costs you a ton of money. The added security doesn't attract new business. The added security does not attract people going to the pub or going out at night. The added security does not translate to people taking jobs in, for example, more dangerous situations. It doesn't really translate to anything. Just a little tick on the box that doesn't appear to have any negatives as it is, which is really weird. So you can build these various placements and services available to you. And if you don't want to build them, that's fine. But if you see these prices, things like a swimming hall, 1000k, which is a million, which is a little bit weird to note that down, and things like the water treatment plant being 3.5 million, and the water treatment plant only adds +2 environment. Does it do something else? I honestly couldn't tell you, because if I place it down, it was gonna cost me 42,000 every month to maintain, which is just something that is absurdly expensive. And while it does cover the entire city, and much further down the line, maybe when all of my city is covered with districts, which honestly I have no desire to do, then something like that might prove a benefit, but as it stands, that just isn't worth the time. And if it's something that's only beneficial that far down the line, why is it unlocked so early on in the game? Again, the game really doesn't provide a lot of depth, and it doesn't provide the information you need to inform you of various decisions. And when you take a look at the political sphere, that too is just very bland and low tier. Just being in the political screen, you can't turn on time just to stay in this, trying to do things. So you have to look at a city that is basically not doing anything, waiting for time to pass, so you can get these edicts and these votes passed, so you can get to do, maybe build a district, which is drawing a few lines and then ignoring it completely, followed by trying to change a few edicts yet again, because that's all there is to the game. And you'll find yourself just trying to pass edicts for no other reason than to pass the time, because there really isn't anything else the game offers. There's no knobs to turn, lines to complete, things to manage or micromanage to any level or detail, and that is a tremendous shame. The political side of things is very bland, the city building is very shallow, and overall the game looks pretty and has a nice idea with a 200-year time span, and the technologies available and the way edicts unlock is pretty cool, but when you try to implement that into the city and the game, the economy is basically broken because it doesn't provide any incentive to improve it, it doesn't provide any information how to improve it, and it doesn't affect you in any negative real way when it is down the gutter. Overall, Urban Empire tries to do something of a mix between political gameplay and city building, but misses the mark with both. So overall, Urban Empire is just not that fun, engaging, or enjoyable, neither as a city building game nor as a political game. And their own little mix of a city ruler, well, doesn't appear to have the depth required to make it interesting. So for now, I'd say either check it out on a sale or avoid it entirely and take a look at games like City Skylines for your SimCity needs and a game like Democracy for your political activism needs. Urban Empire just doesn't appear to hit the mark in an effective manner. If you want to check the game out, there's a link in the description below. And if you liked this video, press the like button below. If you didn't like this video, press the dislike button. It's there for a reason, and leave a comment. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what we can do better. We want to hear back from all of you. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, just press that subscribe button and we will deliver. And until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on GuyLogicGaming.